Hey everybody, welcome to Blue Collar Hockey Talk. I'm Scott Feeney. I'm joined here with my friend Wes Atkinson, and I want to tell you a little bit about what we got going on here. So we have a Blue Collar Hockey Talk. We're talking hockey, we're talking Leafs, we're talking a lot of North Division, but we're not sticking to just hockey, okay? But listen, we want to know what you think. This is new to us, it's new to you. It's our show, it's your show, but we're not just doing it so we can hear ourselves. We want to know, what do you want to hear? So take a moment, put it down in the comments, send us a message, say what you like, what you don't like. We want both, because it's the only way we're going to end up with a show that we all love and enjoy. So Wes, man, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing great tonight, Scott. Thanks for asking, man. I'm looking forward to talking Leafs tonight with you.
Awesome. Well, and folks, keep an eye out over the next little while. We're also going to have a couple other contributors and maybe even another co-host coming on with us. Jeff Taylor might be coming on to the show at some point, and we've also going to have some thoughts later on in the show about Tim Graham. A few things we're going to go on the show, and then we'll get into it here, Wes. We're going to go on about the Leafs backup situation, talk about Campbell a little bit. I guess it means we're going to talk about Hutchison a little bit, and then we've got Jim Rutherford. You're 4-2-0. You've won 2 cups. You're just into the season, and you stepped down personal reasons, and you're healthy. We're not going to speculate either, but we'll touch on that a little bit. Then the great one, he turned 60, and we're going to talk about the depth of our team. It's getting tested, man. Toronto Maple Leafs depth. We've got some injuries, and we'll go into that a little bit more too, and then we'll go into Tim's thoughts. And Wes, I hear that you're going to have a hot take for us later in the show, so I can't wait for it, man.
Oh, for sure, man. Well, like you said, let's start off with the latest in Leafland. Jack Campbell, man, he's going to be out weeks. Can you believe this? The Leafs finally, after years, it's been probably 4 years since they've had a legit backup goalie, and now he's injured, and he's out for weeks. And guess who's back? Hutchison is back.
Oh, I can't even believe that. I mean, I guess Keith said it best. You told me, bud. I mean, Hutch is the only guy on our roster, really, outside of Bogosian, that won playoff games last year in the second round. So, hey, man, I don't know. It was an awful time in Toronto. I mean, the only thing that I think is going for him more than anything, and it's amazing that he has no fans in the building. Because if he had 18,000 fans to either jeer him or cheer him, it would be ruthless. At least for 60 minutes in that game, he can focus and give himself his honest shot. But I mean, Anderson's he'll take us into this 4-day rest that we're about to have. I mean, we won't see Hutch before that, but then whatever the schedule was going to be for Campbell and Anderson, as far as 1A, 1B, you're going to have to follow that for the next 3 weeks, which means we're going to see Hutchison in net, man.
I bet they're gonna tinker with it a bit. I don't think we're gonna see Hutchison until we're at least playing the Canucks, which is in a little while, unless Freddie gets lit up and gets pulled, which could happen, and then we'll get Hutchison in there. But I don't think Hutchison's gonna start for a long time.
Well, even that's going to be a little bit of a balancing act, because, I mean, you don't have a plan B right now. You have to make sure that you've got Anderson ready to go and he's playing sharp. And Anderson, you need to play sharp. And I never really actually thought about this, like I kept going on about how we have a Anderson in a contract year and how that's so huge. You know what? This is just as big a year as it is for Anderson as it is for Campbell, because Campbell's playing for his number 1 spot next year on this team. And so far, so good. So that injury sucks, man. But like, talk about a team player. This guy's going to push through. I mean, we'll see where he goes with it. I hate that he's not in the lineup, though, because like you say, first good backup since McElhinney left town.
Yeah, it's just too bad. And only in Toronto is the backup goalie this big deal when he goes down, But I think it's just been the past few years of bad luck when we've had, we had Sparks in for backup goalie. We had Hutchison in. They just couldn't get it done. And it's just been this source of anxiety for Leaf fans. And I'm sure you felt it when Hutchison was starting a game last year, or when Garrett Sparks was in net 2 years ago. But
it was awful.
What it is. Yeah,
it was awful. And I mean, well, yeah, like you say, it is what it is. We'll see where it goes, man.
Yeah, well, in other NHL news, Jim Rutherford resigned as GM of the Pittsburgh Penguins, man, out of nowhere on January 27th. He has 3 Stanley Cups, man. 2 with the Penguins, 1 with the Hurricanes back in 2006. He's keeping the reasons why he resigned private. They're not for health reasons, which is good. But assistant general manager Patrick Alvin is taking over on an interim basis in Pittsburgh. Man, that's a lot of pressure. You got two of the best players in the NHL. Like at the end of their prime, they have a legit chance to win, and they lost their GM. What do you think?
I know, and I mean they lost their GM that's willing to make moves to get this big run for them. I feel for them, and I mean I don't know what without us really going in and saying, hey, it must be this. Like could it be the fact that he's Canadian? He's 71. His family lives in Canada, and he can't see them until the end of the season, and maybe that just became too much. Maybe could it be that he retired 7 years ago before he became the GM of Pittsburgh and maybe just said, you know what, this is just taking a bit too much out of me. Who knows? Yeah, I feel for the team, like see where they go. Could this be connected with there was a part of the management team that got let go last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed like that was he let go or was he, did he step down?
He was let go in the middle of the off season, I think it was, just for reasons unknown, and it never came out why. I have heard a rumor about why Rutherford might step down, but I don't want to talk about it until it's confirmed, and maybe that'll come up in our next show.
Sorry, if I can say though, that's one of the things that I hope that people come to get out of this show. We're not here to talk about the fluff. We're not here to talk about the stuff that just doesn't actually matter. And I mean, that's filler time. We're not looking for it. So I'm kind of doing it right now. So I'll stop. Where are we going with this, man?
Well, I was going to say, hey, in some other news, it's crazy to think of this. Wayne Gretzky turned 60 on January 26th.
You ever want to start feeling aged?
Oh, man, God, absolutely. Like, I remember him playing in LA in 93 against the Leafs, costing the Leafs a chance to go to the Cup final. But, like he's 60 now. Like, that's so hard to believe.
It sure is. Like, I mean, I might have been about 14 or so when he played for the LA King, he didn't play for the LA Kings. He was playing for the St. Louis Blues. Mike Keenan was the coach of the team at the time. Keenan's cousin lived 4 doors down from me. And I was getting in the car to go on a family trip. And it was the worst timing possible for that because Keenan's cousin came up and said, hey, Scott, me and the boys, he had 2 young boys, a couple of years younger than me. St. Louis is playing in Toronto today, and they've got a practice that we're invited to. We could take shots on them. Now, keep in mind, I'm pretty positive Grant Fuhr was in net in St. Louis that year too. So, I mean, like, I could have been on the ice playing with Gretzky and Grant Fuhr, and my story has to be that I went on my family trip.
Well, I'm sure your memories from that trip must be as important as it would have been to played with Gretzky or played shinny with Gretzky. Some of his stats are just never going to be broken, man. Like 215 points in one season.
Oh, it's insane. And did I read somewhere about his stretch of when he went on a massive point streak and the point totals that came in? I say massive. I'm talking a 51 game point streak.
Yep. That's coming up later, actually. Yeah, I was going to talk about that. It's just
we'll save that, bud. We'll save that.
And it's just craziness. Like, do you think we'll ever have another player as good as Wayne Gretzky in the league?
Not a chance. I mean, we're sitting here talking and hoping that Ovechkin's going to make this number. But can I point something out? I would love to know how old was Gretzky when he was hitting his numbers. And I've never looked into that. But I'll tell you, he wasn't 40 when he scored his record-setting goals. You know what I mean? Like, he retired pretty young. He put up points, man. Like, no, you're not going to see anything like that. It's a different era, but I mean, even trying to compare eras, 1, it's not fair. 2, even if you did, I think it's as simple as look at how much better he was than second best for so long. And it's no different than like Tiger Woods in golf. Like, look how much better he was than second best for so long. Like certain players change the sport. Certain players grow the game. And no, I don't think we'll ever see another player that's going to be responsible for the West Coast having as many teams as they have, because he went there to build the game. When he showed up, it was just the LA Kings. And then after that, you've got the San Jose Sharks, the Anaheim Ducks, the Florida Panthers, the Tampa Bay Lightning. These guys all came after Wayne Gretzky spread the love of hockey down there. So no, man, I don't think we'll ever see anything like that again.
I think Wayne Gretzky was just so much better than everyone else. and that's never going to happen. Like the only time Wayne Gretzky was on the ice with someone who was anywhere close to the level of skill was when he was playing against Lemieux. Like everyone else was just light years behind him. And it's you're absolutely right. I never think we're going to see that big of a difference between, like you said, like someone up here and everyone else down here. Like it's just not going to happen.
I wish I had it right here for the stat, but I'm going to just throw it out there for pretty darn close. Like, if I'm not mistaken, from around the years of 81 to 95, 96, there was only 3 players that won the scoring title. Did you know that? It's Gretzky, Lemieux, and Yager. That's it.
That makes sense,
For
man.
the better
Those guys
part
were
of 2
dominant.
decades. 2 decades, 3 players held that trophy, man. You're right. Dominant. And Mario Lemieux, sorry, when I went on about Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux is the only player that actually has a higher points per game average than the great one. That's it, the only guy. Imagine if he had the longevity. Same can be said about Bobby Orr and so forth. But Gretzky did do it, and he did have the longevity. And no, that was magic. And I wish that I was in, prime watching years of really being able to enjoy it and absorb it, because I just missed it.
Yeah, I think like I just got into hockey at the end of it. I was 10, 11 years old, and Gretzky was kind of at the tail end of his prime. Like one of my regrets is not seeing him play live, and like I've been blessed to see like Sakic play live and Jerome McGinley play live as well, because I've traveled all over Canada and the US and gone to various hockey games. But missing out on Gretzky is something I'm a little bit upset about.
Yeah, I mean, for a guy to actually say it, but to actually do it, like he didn't anticipate the next pass. He anticipated the pass after that, and he would be in position for it. So like he didn't have to be the fastest player on the ice. He was the smartest player on the ice. And his hockey IQ was through the roof.
And he was the smallest player on the ice all the time, and he didn't even touch 200 pounds. He was always like this tiny guy, just fast and smart, and it's amazing.
So one of the big things about contrast, I'm just going to give this real quick piece here, Wes. Like I would say that the biggest contrast that I think is really interesting to look at between, let's say, Gretzky and Crosby. I'm going to go with the 2 massive generational talents. And I'm not meaning anything about McDavid. Crosby was there 10 years before. So I'm going to call Crosby that generational talent to go against Gretzky. Take a look at Gretzky in the 80s, the photo shoots, the blonde hair. He moved from his hometown in Ontario to LA, to Hollywood, and met his wife there and married a Hollywood. Like, he really embraced that lifestyle, which good for him. He was that lifestyle. He was the first massive rock star of hockey. And I don't know, he was the biggest thing that had ever happened to the sport. So he lived it. But then you got Crosby, who goes back to his hometown. He does like little TV commercial shoots with Tim Hortons. That's as flashy as you'll see. And I just feel so damn down to earth, man. I love them both for very much different reasons.
Absolutely, man. Like, I think we could do a whole show about Gretzky and everything that he did, but unfortunately we can't. So maybe we should move on. What does Tim have for us today?
So Tim Graham is going to be one of our contributors, folks, and we're going to make it a point of highlighting this a little bit and chatting about it, because Tim is from out west and he's extremely insightful when it comes to hockey. So I'm going to share his thoughts tonight, guys. So coming from the West Coast, we have reading. I love that we're grinding out wins, something that wouldn't have happened last year. The high-flying, high-scoring team hasn't made an appearance yet. Maybe they're putting more pressure on being good defensively. I think they're still building that chemistry. Everyone's still figuring out everyone's tendencies. Mikheyev can't buy a goal. He's been alone a couple of times the last couple of games, but he just can't buy a goal right now. I like what I've seen from him. He's replaced Kapanen in my mind. That's actually a great point. But that was the whole thing about, like, it felt like we were losing Kapanen, like a good player, but it was an expendable piece. Why? Because we had pieces like Mikheyev to come in the piece. So good point, Tim. I love it.
Yeah, I think he's bang on with that one, man. Like Kapanen, I think we're gonna miss his speed a little bit down the stretch in the season, but good point when it comes to the penalty kill. Having Mikheyev on there, how does he not have a shorthanded goal by now? He's had like 3 or 4 clean breaks, and he's going to get one eventually. And it's going to be a big one, hopefully.
It's coming, man. I love the way that he's playing. He's playing hard. He's playing fast. And you can tell he's playing with a passion. that doesn't come unrewarded for long. It just can't. I mean, there's bad puck luck, and then there's just not working for it. And I would have to say it's bad puck luck. So
Yeah,
that'll turn around, man.
I do agree with Tim too that they're grinding out wins. I think it's really important that they went into Calgary and they took both games away. Didn't give Calgary a single point. And then earlier in the season when they played Winnipeg, Winnipeg had the chance to tie it up and they didn't let Winnipeg get a single point either. And that stuff is going to add up at the end, you know. So it's really, really good to see them not letting in that tying goal at the end of the game.
You're 100% right, because those 3-point games would be killer this year. You need those 2 points for a win to feel like a win and a degree of separation. You know, when you're getting 3-point games in your own division all year long, that's only going to hurt, man. So you're bang on. I'm really happy to see they're all regulation wins. I lied.
Well, there was one.
Montreal. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you got one wrong. But talking about the games, man, that game on Tuesday night against the Flames is probably one of the best games they played this season. They came out like gangbusters in the first period. They only allowed one shot.
Yeah, they outshot them 10-1, man. Like, that's beautiful. That's great.
Yeah. But I don't know about you, man. When I see the Leafs come out like that, I'm like, oh God, the rest of the game, they are going to be a garbage fire. I just don't trust them enough to be able to hang on to that, which, you know what, that's kind of the nature of the NHL, where no team is dominant. And in this division, like, no team can be that dominant over another team the whole game.
No, I mean, unless you're playing against Ottawa lately. But I mean, sorry. That we'll get to that when we're talking about bandwagon jumping. But yeah, man, like, it was pretty amazing to see them come out in the first. I'm with you though. You knew that in the second period, Calgary was going to come out hot. Really, they came out hot the second and third period. So hands down, awesome on seeing Anderson come through with the win. I thought that I was a little nervous to see how that game was going to come out of the pipe right off the bat, because of how the first game with Calgary ended. And I've said it once and I'll say it again, and you're going to hear it come out of me a few times. The intensity is going to ramp up. It's game 2. So when game 2 was starting and we'd already had Tkachuk kneeling and saying grace on top of Campbell's back before, you know, like, I don't know, whatever. The second game, I thought they might come out and I thought it might boil over. And I was pretty proud to see that it didn't quite boil over, except for the fact that I loved watching Muzzin at the end of the game say, you know what, bud? And it wasn't anything like, he didn't slap it at him. He didn't hurt him. It was just, you want to play head games? I can play head games. And guess what? Certainly looked like Muzzin won that round.
Oh, absolutely, man. And it's too bad the schedule didn't work in the way that a third game against the Flames was happening, like tonight or soon after, because it would have just been perfect. It would have made it feel like a playoff series, you know.
Well, and to look at the schedule, I mean, there's 2 or 3 teams that each team plays against 3 games in a row in the regular season, you know? So, like, we're going to see some pretty intense matchups in those game 3s, no matter who's playing in them, man.
Yeah, I think especially, again, I feel like a broken record, but hey, man, the later it gets in the season, the more important these points are. And when you're playing a team back to back to back, that could be a 6-point swing one way or another.
Oh, 100%. And I mean, to be fair, it feels pretty amazing to watch the schedule and to see it, like you say, later on in the season. Of course, it's going to be worth more. But I don't really know where the hell I was going to go with that. I'm just excited.
Oh, for sure, man. Well, hey, moving on from the game, how about I got some hot takes for you this show, man. How many teams make the playoffs?
4 in each division. 16.
Okay, so 16. How many teams are there?
There's 31.
Yep. How many teams made the playoffs in the 90s?
Oh, that's a great question. I would have guessed 16.
Yep.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
In 1991, there was only 22 teams in the NHL.
I've got you.
How do you feel about expanding the playoffs?
I would have to have some serious tweaks, because I thought last year was, and it might be just because I watched teams that didn't deserve to be there because they were second and third. I'm thinking Montreal and Chicago both win in their first round or in the play-in round. And I thought that knocked off teams that maybe shouldn't have been knocked off. And then the way that they ran the draft, whatever, it would just need to be relooked. But you know what? No, I still wouldn't expand the playoffs.
You wouldn't expand. See, I think they need to do what they did last year. Moving on, man. They should give the top 2 teams, or whatever, like 3 teams in each conference, a bye to the next round, and the other teams fight it out and expand the playoffs accordingly. Because we're going to have 32 teams in the NHL next season. So 16 making it is only half compared to back in the day when there's 22 and 16 to 22 made it. Those are completely different leagues, and they're not expanding the playoffs to match. They need to do that. I really think they need to change it. And like the NFL, they expanded their playoffs. They changed all the time, and they're the #1 league in North America. And I think the NHL should learn something from them.
Thank you. That's a great point. And that's where I was just trying to get my head to go. Similar to how they've got it set up. I think that it could work if you ran it where certain teams, let's say the top 2 in each division, so the top 8 teams make my math's not going to work here, but if you sat down and did it, we'd get it. But you'll get my gist. So let's say the top 8 teams, they get a bye. The other teams are playing in a best of 3, not a best of 5, a best of 3. And let's say teams 9 through 24. It's not good math, but you'd have to run like this little round robin. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Three games. That's it. Best of 3.
I'm not saying
baseball does best of 1.
Yep. I don't have the best solution to this problem. I just think it's something that needs to happen, because as of next year, when we're all, hopefully when things are more back to normal, they need fans to go to the games. So therefore they need more teams in it, because once a team does not have a chance to make the playoffs anymore, they're going to lose revenue. They're going to lose attendance. They're losing money, tons and tons of money. So they need more and more teams involved, I think.
Well, then that's a very good point. But then I pose the question, is it better because it's better for revenue, or is it better because of a fan of hockey?
Sports is entertainment, man. And if your team isn't in it, it's not entertaining, right? And I get what you mean. Like we have this idea of purity when it comes to sports, right? And I think that holds sports back more than anything. Like baseball, they're losing viewership. They hold on to these outdated ideas of like what makes a good team versus what makes a bad team. And the problem is, in that league, they have teams that have way more money, and they just pluck the good players from other teams, because those bad teams are out of it so fast. Like, we're both Jays fans, and how many years is it July and they're out of it?
You're right. Last year's format made it where September mattered, where it wouldn't.
Exactly. And that's the thing.
Right.
Like, I was watching it, and I think the NHL needs to follow suit. I'm not saying they should have done it this year, because this year has special circumstances around it. I know they have to be done before the Olympics hopefully start. But anyways, that's my flaming hot take.
Don't you think, though, that this is a typical Leaf thing? That, of course, if they were ever to expand playoffs, it's when we have a team that's just supposed to be a perennial playoff team. It's going to expand after we just went through 20 years of missing a bunch of everything. So, Wes, don't do that to me.
I guess so. That was just my piece for it's a today, good piece. Anyways.
It's good, and it actually makes a lot of sense. And I think that when it comes down to the revenue of it too, and for the general interest of teams that are on the bubbles, they need fans. They're not putting stickers on the helmet for nothing. They're not making any extra money on that. They're just trying to appease current sponsors that aren't getting all of their money's worth. Yeah. So yeah, and like you said, like when you watch teams get $100,000 fine for having players hanging out in a dressing room, comes out of the owner's pockets. They're going to want those games. They're going to vote yes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, anyways, like I said, that was my flaming hot take for today. Let's get back to the Leafs a bit, man. One thing about the season, the injury bug is biting them. They've already had 3 players out. Nick Robertson is out for long-term injury reserve, knee injury. Thornton's already out, long-term injury reserve with a fractured rib, and Campbell is out, like we discussed earlier in the show. Do you really think the Leafs need to pick up anyone, in the short term?
Not really. I mean, I know that might sound silly. I mean, if there's ever a silver lining to this, we don't have any defensemen out. So, I mean, you've still got your taxi squad full on the defense, but our goaltending depth, we lost Aaron Dell, and then Campbell goes. Well, we lost Aaron Dell to waivers, which we knew that was going to happen, but it was Robertson's injury that made that happen. And then, of course, Campbell gets hurt just 2 or 3 games later. Like, it couldn't have been worse luck on that. If it would have just been a little bit different, we could have played a couple of games with Dell, but the most he got was wearing the jersey on the bench. So then Campbell gets hurt. Welcome back Hutchinson. the number 4, is now, and this is where my biggest problem with calling him a backup is. This year, and you had made a comment of only in Toronto would we really make this big of a deal of a backup. No, my biggest thing is this year, it's not a backup. It's your other goalie. You know what I mean? Like we have every team has 2 goalies that are going to play a lot of games, 120, 135, let's say. So, yeah, I'm with you. They're going to ride Anderson. We'll see where we go. And then when you got Thornton, we'll see. We'll see. I don't see them picking up another player outside of this team, though. I just don't. I know that that's 2 players on our forward group, but it's not our bread and butter. They're players that should be able to get filled with our other taxi squad players, at least for a while. And yes, is it going to be a bit of a downgrade? Maybe, but maybe not. You might see some kids play above their head. Not even kids. You'll see some KHL player of the years maybe stepping in and getting some ice time, So no, I don't think that there's a rush to go and make a move. I don't think we have the salary space to really do that once everybody comes back too.
Yeah, it's not my job to look up how the salary cap works because it is a tough job for the Leafs. Like, I really wonder someone like Tyler Ennis, who has been a Leaf a few years ago, liked in the room, if they brought him in, picked him up off waivers type of thing, and like knowing that as soon as these other guys are better, that like he's going back on waivers. Because a month of the season's a month of the season. That's a long time.
Well, it is, especially when you're playing every other night. You're talking 14, 15 games of a 50. How many games are in this season, Wes?
There's 56 games this season.
I was going to say that, so I should have just trusted myself. Like, you got 56 games, 15. That's just over 25%.
Yep.
It's like 28% of your year. But this year is just a strange year. I feel like you had to build your taxi squad big enough, good enough to get through this. Maybe not every team, but the Leafs that are so hard up against the cap, I think that it was imperative that taxi squad was going to be our filler space. Mm-hmm. And with having the Marlies starting up in a few weeks, that'll be huge because I hope that they're playing close. I don't know. Are they going to have to play out of the States?
They're going to be in Canada. Nope, there's going to be a Canadian division in the AHL. There aren't many teams, but the Marlies are still going to be in Toronto. So that's good for the Leafs.
Yeah, that is really good, man. So that's great. We don't have to worry about a quarantine period and all that stuff. So I'm glad to hear about that, man.
Yeah.
What do you think, though?
Like I said, I think it's more around the edges type of thing. Like, you don't want to be in a position where you need to pick somebody up, right? Like, you want to already have that player there. And it's like I said, Tyler Ennis, to me, just because he's already a known commodity, we know what he can do. We know that he would fit. But, I don't think it's time to trade any draft picks or anything like that for somebody. Like, that's just way too soon. And the Leafs are winning right now. Like, if they were in the position that the Canucks are in or that Edmonton's in, I think there'd be a little bit more pressure from the outside to do something because we couldn't afford to either like go on a slide in that position. But so far, so good with them. But moving on to our favorite segment of the show, this day in hockey history. January 28th, 1984. Wayne Gretzky. We were talking about him earlier. 51-game point streak, the longest in NHL history, ended when the LA Kings kept him off the score sheet when they defeated the Oilers 4-2.
I want to guess at how many points he had in those 51 games. Can I do that?
Yeah, go for it.
I mean, you'd think that I'm cheating or whatnot, but full disclosure, I don't have a good memory, so I wouldn't remember it anyway. So I would say in 51 games, the guy averaged 2.5 points a game, 125 points.
More than that, man. He had 153 points.
That's disgusting.
61 goals, 92 assists.
And you asked, are we ever going to see anything like him again?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. What makes this even crazier is the final 9 games of the previous season. He had put up points. So if you connected them, it would have been a 60-game point streak.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
He was otherworldly. So, I mean, hats off to you. Happy birthday, Wayne Gretzky.
Absolutely, man. Well, let's get back to the Leafs. Let's preview some of the upcoming games. By the time this recording comes out, they'll probably have been done this game, but what do you think of the rematch with the Oilers?
I think that we're finally going to see a fast-paced game. Like 2 games in a row, I feel like we saw 2 teams that were maybe feeling each other out a little bit more than they needed to. Gave each other a lot of respect for each other's offenses. I think that tonight that neutral zone might be a little bit looser. I think you'll see some fast entries. I think you're going to see a fun game. If I were betting over under on the pro line, this game's going over tonight, for sure. But I'd also pick the Leafs to win plus.
Wow.
So I think the Leafs are going to have a great night, man. I just like how they're playing. Like you say, they're grinding out wins. They seem to be getting it. So keep going, and I'll ride their coattails.
I do. Like, they do have 2 games against the Oilers. They have the one on Thursday the 28th and then Saturday the 30th. I think they're going to split because I think the Oilers are going to come out and be desperate because they have only won 3 games so far this season, and like they are expected to be in the playoffs, contending in the playoffs, and they are not doing that right now. So I really think they're going to be desperate and they're going to steal one from the Leafs.
No, like you're right. I mean, it was supposed to be Toronto or Edmonton that were going to win the North Division, and I mean, really, it seemed to be that's where all conversations started in regards to who's going to win this division. And so when they're sitting 3-5-0 after 8 games, yeah, man, like I can only imagine how it's going in that room. We've all seen McDavid, how he can get upset, and he's a leader, and you can tell. But I've also, I say that, but we need to see him pull that team out of this. We just do. I mean, he's leading by example on the ice, yes, but there's more to it than that. And I'm not putting it on him. That whole team, man. I mean, like, I feel so bad that he's been there so long. Not as bad as I feel for Jack Eichel, but and speaking of which, how are they doing? No, I'm just kidding.
Oh,
but
we'll get to them on another show. I think the Oilers, man, like they just seem to underperform year in and year out. Other than that one year they went to, I think, the second round of the playoffs. And
dude, if I'm not mistaken, that was McDavid's first or second year. It might have been his rookie year.
I think it was his second year. I don't think it was his rookie year.
No, it would have made more sense.
We'll have to double check that somewhere.
Regardless, we're gone 3 straight years where he hasn't. Like man, like when you've got 2 MVP players on that team, I mean, at what point do you turn around and say, why didn't you get us a goddamn goalie? Like, what are you doing? Keep patching holes with veterans and glue. Like, you have 2 MVPs on this team that want to do something. You've got a lot of good pieces right through that team. So Edmonton, like, I think they'll turn it around. Like, if we're talking bandwagon stuff here, I wouldn't be jumping off of Edmonton. I wouldn't. I mean, history shows you probably should be, because they do this every year and have, even with this core. But I just feel like they can't possibly.
I do think next year will be the year for Edmonton because at the end of the season, they have a lot of money coming off the salary cap, and they should be able to make some like decent changes. But man, this season it is going to be like, it must be on fire in Edmonton, in the cold, cold city of Edmonton, about how poorly this team has performed. But anyway,
I could only imagine. I want to say one last thing about a bandwagon, if I could, bud.
Sure.
Like, I just wanted to say, like, we had made a mention of how do we think the divisions are going to be, and is it going to be really close? Is it going to be anyone pulling away? And we made a comment last week how there's going to be 3 teams that are going to take to the top, and the rest of the pack's going to split off a little bit in the North Division, or at least that's what I had said. But you've got, like, so far it's looking a little bit like that. But Ottawa, man, like our last show, I was tipping my hat off saying I may have misread Ottawa. You want to know what, Wes? No, I didn't. They're brutal. What the hell? How do you go into Vancouver and lose 7-1, 5-1?
Man, it is, with Ottawa, I feel like they're in the worst position they can be in. Like, they're a team on the rise, but they're always going to be the worst team when they're on the ice with another team in this division. Like, there's no Chicago, there's no Detroit, there's no Buffalo. Like, they don't have the chance to compare themselves to another team that is either bad or on the rise. And I think it's going to be just a tough year for Ottawa. They are going to steal wins from teams. Like, I really do. They're not going to keep going at this pace all season. Like, they'll go on a streak somewhere. I have faith that the Sens will do it. And it's just math, man. Like, they can't be. They're not Detroit from last year. That was just awful, right? Like,
you know what I'm picturing them as, bud? You know what I'm picturing them as? I'm picturing it as there's a grade 9 dance going on, and they just showed up to the dance and they're not moving. They showed up and they thought, like, they walked into the dance like this, like, here I am, boys. And then they got there and just stood by the punch for the whole dance. That's what's happening right now, man.
I think you're not too far off there, man. I think they just have they have young guys, right? That are just kind of learning their way. And I think they're in one of the hardest divisions, and they never have an easy night. Like, what line does Ottawa have that looks at the other equal value of that line in another team and they're like, we're better than them? I don't think they have one.
Oh, that's a good point. I mean, if you sit there and you go line to line, defense pairing to defense pairing, and you have an X beside every box on your team, and you're on the stage playing against every other Canadian team on national television on every game pretty much. Well, maybe not national, but you're getting a lot of TV coverage this year. And people are locked at home right now in Ontario. So we're watching these games. They're not doing themselves any favors right now. Not one bit.
You know what? I'll turn this around. This might be the best thing that happens to Ottawa. If they are absolutely horrible, they are going to finish statistically so low in the league, they're going to end up with another high draft pick for next year. And that's going to make them, assuming everything is back to normal next year, they're going to be that much better. So then when there's more teams to compete with, then they'll jump up really high compared to what they would be projected to be.
Yeah, no, okay, that's a good way to look at it. I can give you that. You know what? I want nothing more than to see Ottawa do well. I'm not an Ottawa fan. There's nothing fun about watching the Leafs go play against Ottawa right now.
No, not at all. Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up for the night. Do you have any more spicy hot takes? Like, do you have a hate on for Winnipeg like you do for Ottawa, or what? Like,
no. You know, I'll leave it be. I'll leave it be for now, Wes. I'm just going to say I'm looking forward to when Jeff comes to join us. Tim, thank you very much for your thoughts. And if you like this guy here and you're liking what you're hearing, we want to hear your feedback. So again, put it in the comments. Send us a message. I want to hear it. Thank you very much, guys. And Wes, you take us home, bud.
All right, man. If you, like Scott said, if you like what you hear and what you see, please like and subscribe. And if you follow us on Twitter @BlueCollarHT. All right. Have a good night, everyone.